we're going to cover the mobility for the ankle joint. The most important thing with the ankle joint is when you're stretching it and you're getting that mobility is make sure you're getting the optimal movement through this joint here, which is known as the talus joint. If that's really, really tight, you'll lose a lot of that range of motion. If you're doing a lot of burpees, a lot of squats, heavy squats or heavy deadlift, and also box jumps, it can put a lot of stress on the ankle joint and cause injuries and also just hinder the recovery. When you're looking at the ankle joint mobility, you want to be able to get proper movement through that. If there's a restriction in that mobility, you'll find you won't be able to get the range of motion through that joint. There's two exercises that I do. The first one is focusing on what's known as the plantar fascia, which is a muscle at the bottom of your foot. The second one that I look at is really making sure we're getting the flexibility and mobility through these calf muscles. And there's two layers to that. I'm going to go through that. Let's cover the first one, which is the plantar fascia. You may have heard of this when people say, oh, I've got plantar fasciitis. You'll get really acute pain on the front of the heel joint. If that muscle's really, really tight, you'll get a tugging sensation coming through the heel. If you get up in the morning and you put your feet down, it's really tender, really sore after a WOD, that's an indication that this fascia is really tight, there's fibrosis and scar tissue around that, and most important thing is we get that loosened up. The best way to do that is I use a trigger point ball or a lacrosse ball. I'm going to start just in front of the heel. I'm not going to roll on the heel, and I'm going to roll cross friction across that fascia. The muscle starts here and splays out and attaches just under the toes. You want to be working along that in a cross friction pattern to make sure you can just break up all those adhesions. I'm going to put the ball down, just apply firm but not too hard a pressure on that, and I'm just going to roll acrossways. And just work it all the way out. You don't want to ignite an inflammatory process in that, so don't push too hard, especially with this muscle. Hard is not better. You just want to make sure you just gradually just break those adhesions up. If there's a point that's really tender, that's an indication that you may have some fibrosis. It may be really tight in that area, and as such, it's going to really limit that mobility in the ankle joint. And I'm just going to spend 30 to 45 seconds doing each foot and working through there. Just going to work backwards and forwards, just gradually moving up that muscle and down that muscle. The second one I'm going to be doing is focusing on the calf muscles. To do that, I find the best way is to use a roller. It doesn't really matter what type of roller. I grab this one, it works well for me. There's two layers to the muscle. You've got what's known as the gastroc, which are these two large muscles that sit here. Underneath that, you've got what's known as the soleus. These muscles attach at the knee joint and they come down, they both form into the Achilles tendon. So if that's really, really tight, often it can cause strain or tendonitis in the Achilles, especially if you're doing a lot of jumping, a lot of the box jumps. You want to make sure that that flexibility is there so it doesn't put pressure on that Achilles tendon. One of the worst injuries you can get is a rupture of that Achilles tendon. It can take up to 9 months to 12 months to get full recovery with that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the top of the muscle, and I'm just going to gradually work my way down. The best way to do it is to turn the leg in and gradually turn it out. And you'll feel points where it's quite tender. That's an indication that you got a lot of muscle spasm or just it's really, really tight through that area. If you want to apply a little bit more weight to that area, I'll put my other foot on it, and it just gets a little bit more pressure through that area. After a while, you're going to get the flexibility there. You may be able to raise the weight up, and that's going to put even more pressure on that muscle to make sure you get the flexibility out of it. These two, they don't take that long, and make sure it gets all the mobility out of that ankle joint to make sure you don't cause any injuries. Enjoy.